Hamilton stunned after the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix, and Ferrari's race may have revealed something much bigger than the final result. What if Ferrari actually had the pace to fight for the podium at Zandvoort, but once again left the race wondering what could have been? That is the question now surrounding Lewis Hamilton, Fred Vasseur, and the entire Ferrari operation after a tense Dutch Grand Prix. Ferrari did not arrive at Zandvoort expecting an easy weekend. The circuit is narrow, technical, and notoriously difficult for overtaking, meaning qualifying position and strategy were always going to be crucial. But as the Ferrari SF26 began showing stronger race pace, expectations started to change. Suddenly, this was not simply about surviving the weekend. Ferrari looked capable of fighting near the front, and that created a completely different problem. If the car was fast enough, why didn't Ferrari finish higher? Hamilton's reaction became one of the biggest talking points because the Ferrari driver appeared to believe that more was available. He had the pace, he had the opportunity, and yet the final result left him outside the podium. So what exactly went wrong? Was it qualifying? Was it Ferrari's strategy? Was it the timing of the pit stops? Or did Ferrari simply fail to maximize a car that was faster than many expected? That is where the story becomes fascinating, because the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix may have exposed Ferrari's biggest strength and biggest weakness at exactly the same time. The strength is obvious. The SF26 appears to have made another step forward. The weakness may be execution. And if Ferrari wants Hamilton anywhere near the championship fight, execution cannot remain a question mark. From the opening stages, Hamilton's race was already complicated. The Ferrari driver had to manage traffic, tire strategy, and the difficult Zandvoort layout while trying to keep contact with the cars ahead. But as the race developed, something became increasingly obvious. Hamilton was not simply trying to protect fourth place. He wanted more. He wanted Ferrari to attack. He wanted the team to react. And when a driver of Hamilton's experience starts pushing the pit wall for a different strategy, you have to ask yourself why. What was Hamilton seeing from inside the cockpit that Ferrari was not acting on quickly enough? That question could become one of the biggest lessons Ferrari takes away from this race. Because drivers feel things engineers cannot always see immediately on the timing screens. They know how the tires are behaving. They know when the car ahead is vulnerable. They know when they have enough grip to attack. Hamilton believed there was an opportunity, and his frustration suggested that he did not think Ferrari was moving quickly enough to exploit it. Then came the battle involving his own Ferrari teammate, Charles Leclerc. This was another critical moment. When two teammates are fighting for position, a team has to make an incredibly difficult decision. Do you allow them to race freely? Do you prioritize the driver with better pace? Or do you protect the strategy that was planned before the race? Ferrari had to balance all three. But Hamilton's frustration grew because he appeared to believe that time was being lost. And in Formula One, especially at a circuit like Zandvoort, a few seconds can become the difference between a podium and fourth place. Could those lost seconds have changed Hamilton's entire race? That is the uncomfortable question. Hamilton eventually got the opportunity to run in cleaner air, but by then the strategic window was already becoming smaller. The Ferrari had pace, but the opportunity to convert that pace into a podium was disappearing. And this is where the final result becomes misleading. Someone looking only at the classification might say Ferrari simply wasn't fast enough. But anyone watching the race closely could see another story developing. Ferrari had enough performance to make Hamilton believe the podium was possible. That is why fourth place felt frustrating rather than encouraging. It was not a case of Ferrari being nowhere. It was a case of Ferrari being close enough to taste the opportunity. And that is much more painful for a team like Ferrari. What if Hamilton had qualified one position higher? What if Ferrari had reacted one lap earlier? What if the team had made a different call during the middle phase of the race? Any one of those small changes could potentially have changed the final outcome. And that is exactly why Fred Vasseur's reaction matters. The Ferrari boss has repeatedly emphasized the importance of extracting the maximum from the car, and Zandvoort gave Ferrari another test of that ability. Vasseur could not simply look at the final result and say the team had done enough. The real question was whether Ferrari had maximized every available opportunity. And the answer, judging by Hamilton's frustration, was not completely clear. But here is where Ferrari fans should pay attention. Hamilton's frustration may actually be a good sign. Why? Because it shows he believes the car is capable of more. If Hamilton had finished fourth and simply accepted that Ferrari was too slow, that would be far more worrying. Instead, his reaction suggested that he believed the team could have challenged for a better result. That means the fundamental performance may finally be moving in the right direction. The problem is that the higher Ferrari's performance rises, the less room there is for mistakes. When you have a midfield car, finishing fourth can be a miracle. When you have a potential front-running car, finishing fourth can feel like a failure. Ferrari is now entering that second category, and that changes everything. The team is no longer just trying to improve the SF26. It is trying to turn the SF26 into a championship weapon. That means qualifying has to improve, strategy has to improve, communication has to improve, and perhaps most importantly, Ferrari has to make Hamilton and Leclerc feel that when an opportunity appears, the team will react immediately. Because Mercedes is not going to wait, McLaren is not going to wait, Red Bull is not going to wait. Every point Ferrari leaves behind becomes another opportunity for a rival, and this is where the Dutch Grand Prix could become a turning point. Not because Ferrari suddenly became the fastest team, but because the team may now have a car capable of fighting for podiums more consistently. The question is whether Ferrari can stop wasting the opportunities when they appear. Think about Hamilton's situation. He joined Ferrari because he wanted to fight for victories. He did not move to Maranello to collect respectable fourth-place finishes. He wants to compete at the front. He wants to put pressure on Mercedes and McLaren. He wants to prove that the partnership with Ferrari can work. And that creates enormous pressure on Vasseur. Every strategic decision involving Hamilton will be scrutinized. Every pit stop will be analyzed. Every radio message will become a talking point. If Hamilton wins, Ferrari gets the praise. If Hamilton loses because of strategy, Vasseur gets the questions. That is the reality of leading Ferrari. And after Zandvoort, those questions are getting louder. Did Ferrari make the right call at the right moment? Or did the team hesitate when Hamilton needed an aggressive decision? The answer may become clearer when Ferrari reviews the race data. Engineers will look at tire degradation, lap times, traffic, pit windows, and alternative strategies. They will simulate what could have happened if Hamilton had stopped earlier or if Ferrari had reacted differently. And perhaps that analysis will reveal that Hamilton was absolutely right. Or perhaps it will reveal that the strategy Ferrari chose was mathematically the safest option. But even if the numbers defend Ferrari, there is still an important lesson here. Driver confidence matters. Hamilton needs to believe the team is listening. Vasseur needs to know when to trust Hamilton's instinct. And the engineers need to communicate clearly enough that everyone understands the bigger picture. This is how championship teams operate. They don't just have fast cars, they make fast decisions. And that may be Ferrari's next major challenge. The SF26 can continue improving, but if Ferrari wants to beat Mercedes, the pit wall has to become just as sharp as the engineering department. Zandvoort also highlighted another fascinating element: the relationship between Hamilton and Leclerc. Both drivers want to win. Both believe they can be Ferrari's lead driver on any given weekend. And when one driver feels faster than the other, the team has to decide how much freedom to give them. That is dangerous territory. If Ferrari manages it correctly, the rivalry can push both drivers to another level. If Ferrari manages it badly, the internal battle could become another distraction. Could Hamilton's frustration at Zandvoort eventually create tension inside Ferrari? Or could it actually force the team to become more decisive? That may be one of the biggest stories to watch during the next races, because Ferrari cannot afford internal confusion while Mercedes is collecting podiums. The championship is moving quickly, and every race changes the pressure. A driver can lose 20 points in one weekend simply because a strategic call goes wrong. A team can lose momentum because qualifying goes badly. And once confidence disappears, the problem becomes much larger than one race. Ferrari needs to build momentum now, and Zandvoort gave them something valuable: evidence that the car can fight. The final result may not have been what Hamilton wanted, but the underlying pace could be far more important. If Ferrari can take that pace to the next circuit, improve its qualifying performance, and make better strategic decisions, then the picture could change very quickly. Suddenly, Hamilton could be fighting for podiums every weekend. Suddenly, Leclerc could be challenging the Mercedes cars. Suddenly, the championship standings could look completely different. But what if Ferrari fails to capitalize? What if Zandvoort becomes another example of a race where the team had the speed but not the execution? Then the criticism will become much harsher. Because once you prove you have the performance, nobody will accept excuses about being too slow. That is the new pressure Ferrari has created for itself. The team has raised expectations, and Hamilton's reaction is part of that story. He knows the car can be better. Vasseur knows it. The engineers know it. The fans know it. The only question is whether Ferrari can consistently deliver when the pressure is highest. And that brings us back to the biggest mystery of the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix. Was Hamilton actually stunned because Ferrari disappointed him? Or was he stunned because he realized just how close Ferrari is to becoming a genuine front-running threat? Those are two very different stories. One suggests Ferrari has another problem. The other suggests Ferrari may have finally unlocked something important. And the next race could tell us which one is true. If Ferrari can reproduce the Zandvoort race pace while improving qualifying and strategy, Mercedes could suddenly have a much bigger problem on its hands. Hamilton would have a car capable of fighting, Leclerc would have a car capable of fighting, and Vasseur would have the responsibility of turning that potential into results. So now the question for you is simple. Do you think Ferrari had the pace to put Hamilton on the podium at the 2026 Dutch Grand Prix? And did Ferrari make the right strategic decisions? Or did Hamilton have every reason to be frustrated? Tell me your opinion in the comments, because the debate around Ferrari's Zandvoort race is only going to get bigger. And if you want the latest Hamilton, Ferrari, Vasseur, Mercedes, and F1 2026 updates like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and stay with us. Because if Zandvoort really was a sign of what Ferrari has unlocked, the next race could be where the entire F1 paddock finally finds out.